Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. You are most welcome here. And today I am really excited for my project because today I'm going to make an advent calendar. When I was a little girl, one of my favorite parts of the holiday season was picking out an advent calendar. And back then, my advent calendars at least didn't have chocolate or toys or anything like that. They were just pictures. Not that I'm opposed to chocolate or toys in advent calendars, I like that a lot. But mine were just pictures, and I loved them. And I have a couple of examples here of advent calendars that either are ones I had when I was a child or like ones I had when I was a child. So this first one, I had this model of advent calendar when I was a child. And for this one, you would take off the doors and reveal what looks like stained glass behind. And I just loved anything with light that was a little bit different. So in this case, the light shines through the colored plastic or something reflective, anything like that I loved as a child. And then this other one, you can see has a sort of a three-dimensional component. Obviously everything's three-dimensional, but it has a more dimensional component and little doors. And what I would do if I had a calendar like this, and I remember having one that had actually a bridge in it, is I would get my little wooden play school people and they would have a whole new location to play at because I would play on the advent calendar with them. So what I'd really love to do is combine sort of the art with the play and make an advent calendar with those elements. Let's go have some fun. I looked at a lot of wood at the Dollar Tree, and what I settled on was to start this cutout of a castle, and that's going to be sort of the foundation, the back of the advent calendar. And then I'm going to use as the base this plank of wood. It's called wood hanging decor, also from the Dollar Tree. And I have a few of these. I picked the one that was the least warped. And the dimensions of this seem to be around 17 inches by around 4.5 inches. And I am going to use the full length of this. I wasn't sure if I was going to at first. So I'm going to attach the castle on the back of it, sort of standing up. And then what I want to do is build drawers out from each of these little turrets on the castle. Now I built a sort of a prototype sliding drawer, and that's what I want to use for the little boxes that will hold the little toys for the advent calendar. Or of course you could put whatever you want in the little boxes. But I made this one just out of craft sticks, and I know it looks absolutely awful, but it was just sort of a can I do this sort of thing. So you can see that the way that it works is you've got the basic box shape, and then you double up on the inside with some pieces leaving the slot that the door will slide into. So we're going to try to do that. Now the Dollar Tree does sell these wood planks, but they're about 4 millimeters thick, which it's not that thick, but I wanted something that I could very easily cut because I'm going to be doing a lot of cutting to make the little drawers. So I bought this pack of 20 pieces of wood at Amazon, and I was specifically looking for something that is very thin, something like the old balsa wood that you could get at hobby stores back when I was a kid, and it would come in different sizes and different thicknesses, but there were those pieces that were quite thin and easy to cut. So this is about 1 millimeter thick. So this is going to be easy to cut, but still pretty sturdy. So this is what we're going to make our little drawers out of. So on the castle, each turret is going to have 6 drawers. They're going to be 3 in the front and 3 in the back. And the 3 in the front are going to be on the inside, and the little doors will slide toward you. And the 3 in the back are going to be on the outside, and the little doors will slide away from you. So we're going to need to cut for each side 2 pieces of wood. One is going to go between, I've been calling them drawers, but let's call them boxes. So one that's going to go between the 2 sets of 3 boxes and one that's in the front. And we have to consider that we need to have space for that door to slide. So it needs to be a little bit bigger than the size of that rectangle that's under the turret. So I'm just going to use that and put it over my piece of wood, and I'm just going to slide it enough to accommodate the width of one of those pieces of wood, so the millimeter width, because that's where our little door is going to be, and then plus a little bit more because we need to put something in front of that that will make the channel that it will slide in. So I'm just sliding that over, and then I'm going to trace around it with the pencil, and then I'm just going to use my T-square and a fresh blade in my box cutter knife, and I'm just going to keep scoring it until I can snap it. And that's how I did most of the cuts. Lots of scores and then a snap, and usually it would snap cleanly. If it didn't, I could always just clean it up with the knife after. So with those 4 pieces now cut, 2 for each side, I'm going to cut the bottoms of the little compartments. So the very bottom of the piece, that long board, the hanging decor board, that will be the bottom of the bottom boxes. So 4 boxes will have that piece for their bottom, but I need 4 bottoms for the middle boxes and then 4 bottoms for the top boxes. And in honesty, I did not cut these very well. And in honesty, it doesn't really matter. As long as they're close, they're going to be inside the little compartments, so you're not going to see them too much. So when I sized those, I sized them to be a width such that this would fit the castle plus its turret walls coming out with the 6 boxes, so that it would fit on that plank. Remember, that's about 4.5 inches. I need some space on the back of the castle to put some supports in to help it stand up. And the front of the boxes are going to come pretty close to the front of that board, but with just a little bit of a lip. With the boxes, I'm trying to make sure they're big enough to put some toys in, but also, again, they need to fit on that plank, which is going to be the base. So that's how I figured out the size, and you can see they're about 2 inches by 1.5 inch. So with those all cut, now I need to put little supports in for those. So they are basically shelves, and I'm going to put supports along the back of the castle, so there will be 4 supports, and then I will put 2 supports front and back on that middle piece, or 2 supports for each shelf. Front and back for the top shelf, front and back for the middle shelf. And then on the front piece, just 1 support for each shelf on the inside. And I'm just cutting strips of the wood. There's lots of extra wood, so just cutting little strips of the wood and gluing it with wood glue to the castle. Now, to line these all up, I lined up the pieces of wood with the bottom of the castle because they will all be resting on the same base, and then I glued the little supports on so that they would all give me relatively level shelves. And when those had all dried, I did the other side of that middle piece. Again, just making sure it would line up. Those really need to line up with that end piece. Now, with those all dry, now I'm going to glue the little shelves in. And I will be honest, this was tricky. I would say another set of hands would be enormously helpful here. So what I did was I put wood glue on the top of each of those supports and then put the shelves on. But I wanted to just dry it all on a level surface, so I didn't want to put the shelves on one piece and let them dry in case they didn't dry level. So the trickiest part was doing that first set of shelves because I had nothing to hold the castle up. Once I started putting the shelves in with those other supports, now the castle would stand up by itself and it got much easier. And I did sort of lean the castle against things. But if you have a helper, that would probably make this go a lot easier than it went for me. And one little trick that I use is I'll use masking tape or painter's tape to hold my wood pieces together while I'm getting everything organized, and then after that I can do something a little firmer in the way of clamping. You can see with this top view, as I put it together, I made sure that that first set of shelves, the ones that are closest to the castle, would extend a little bit beyond the end of the castle because that's the way that door is going to open. And we need to have space for both the track that the door is going to be in and sort of the end of that track. And for the shelves on the inside, I did basically the opposite. I made sure that that piece in the front
gave me space on the left for the door and the shelf. But I think I could have given more space. So as you look at this, I think more space on each side would have looked better. And this is where the size of those little shelves is off. The shelves should have been deeper to accommodate for this. So if I were making this again, I would take a look at this and I would figure out the correct measurements that would give me a shelf that starts for the back shelves on the left side of the turret minus the size of the piece of wood that's going to go on the outside. And then far enough to the right of the turret that I have room for the channel, the end piece of the channel, and the little door. I think if I made this again, that I could get the measurements a little more precise. But as you look at it, if you plan to make this, take this top-down view and you can figure out exactly how those shelves should have looked and how far out they should have gone. Mine works, it's just not as precise as I would have liked. Okay, now with that all dry, I can do the piece that goes on the top, which will be the top of those top compartments, and the pieces that go on the backs. So the backs of these compartments on the inside is going to go against the castle, and on the outside is going to be away from the castle. So we'll have those tall pieces that are the backs on the inside and on the outside, so we'll cut 4 of those, and then we'll cut pieces to go along the top. And for all of these pieces, I just worked with what I had. So in fact, in one case, I felt that the backing piece needed to go on the inside of that middle piece, and on the other side I felt it needed to go on the outside. And it's really not noticeable at all on the finished piece. I think it would have been more noticeable if I'd tried to be consistent and put them both on the inside or on the outside, because then they wouldn't have lined up as well. So my goal was to make them line up with the turrets. And in one case, my middle piece was just a little further out than on the other side. So that's why I chose to put one piece on the inside and one piece on the outside. And you can see with that first one that my shelves just aren't nearly deep enough. But we're not going to be storing, hopefully, powder or some tiny little thing in there. We're going to be storing some little wooden toys, or maybe you would want to put like lint truffles in there or something like that. And so nothing's going to fall down that crack. And you can see I just glued that in and held it in place with some tape while I went to work on some of the others. With all the side pieces glued in place and dried, I then did the top pieces. So it was definitely easier to work with this if I let pieces dry. And the wood glue doesn't take very long to dry, enough that you can handle the piece and continue to work with it. Now I've made one functioning door to show you how I am going to do this. I decided that I didn't want to double up the wood on the inside. Really, being thrifty was one of my main goals with this. I didn't want to make an expensive advent calendar, and I think in total that this cost me less than $20, and I have a lot of supplies left over, a lot. So what I decided to use, rather than double up the wood, is to use bamboo skewers to make the tracks. So I just cut 2 bamboo skewers for the bottom and the top, and that makes a little track. And I cut a door, and the door slides very easily between those little skewer pieces. So for the outside skewer piece, I did bevel that a little bit with my knife. So just, basically, once I had cut it to size, then cut it at an angle so that it wasn't just sort of sticking out at the end, so that it sort of smoothed down to the end of the shelf, so it didn't look quite so abrupt, because clearly this doesn't look as nice as it would look if I had doubled up the shelf and used the wood pieces. But I thought the bamboo skewer, because we are making 12 of these little doors, so that means we're making 48 pieces, I thought the bamboo skewers would go more quickly, and they're easy to cut with scissors or shears. So that's what I did, and I just glued them in place and held them in place with tape. Now, so all of my doors are slightly different sizes, so I did put a piece of masking tape on each door and write on the masking tape which door it is. That way I don't have a situation where I'm trying to figure out which door goes in which space, I think that would be very challenging. So because they're not exactly the same size, that's what I had to do. Maybe you are better at this than I am, probably, and yours are all the same size, and that would be cool. Now those top pieces, especially where they meet the turret, don't look very nice because there's naturally a space. Now I suppose if you're better at this than I am, you could have cut that and cut out a little space for the turret in the wood. That would have looked good. I didn't do that, and now I'm wishing I had done that now that I'm looking at it from the top. You get the advantage of seeing me make this once, and you can make improvements. But so what I decided to do was to make a sort of a molding to go around the top of those wood pieces. And so what I did was I cut strips, they were 1/4 inch strips of my wood, and then I glued bamboo skewer to the bottom of the strips, or kind of vice versa because the bamboo skewer was longer. I glued the strips to the bamboo skewer, and this gave me some molding. I did three bamboo skewer pieces was enough. I had measured it out, so I knew what I needed. And then I just cut those pieces. Now I have that little miter saw, so I was able to miter them so that I could just put them around the edge of the top. And I did it with the bamboo skewer part down. I thought that looked better, and it gave me sort of a little lip along the top, because my goal with this piece is to have spaces, lots of spaces where a child could play with toys on it. And so this gives us 2 sort of rooftop spaces that feel a little bit more like a space that could be inhabited than if it doesn't have a little bit of a lip, sort of like a railing. And now I have a bag of assorted size wood beads. I did already have this bag. You can buy wood beads in all sorts of places, including the Dollar Tree. So I picked the smallest of those beads and I glued them to the doors as handles. And again, you want to make sure that you're putting the handles in the right place relative to how the doors fit in. So if everything's perfect, it doesn't matter quite so much, but mine are not perfect. So I took the doors out, made sure I knew which way they were going to slide and which way they were going to open, and then glued the little handles on. The color of these doesn't matter, by the way, because we are going to be painting this. So mine are all different colors. Now it's time to attach this to the base, and it's going to be pretty sturdy because we have those boxes, so that gives us a lot of support in the front. But I also wanted to put something in the back, so I do have these wood cubes from the Dollar Tree, and I just sort of played with them trying to figure out how I wanted them to look. And well, you'll see how I did it. I just sort of stacked them up in a little pyramid, but with space. So I found the center of that so that the center of the castle would be in the center, and then I just applied glue to the bottom and glued it down. And then I did the same thing with those little blocks, but the blocks have some rough sides and some smoother sides. So I tried to make sure that the smoother sides were facing out. I think I might have forgotten to do it in a few places, but that's something to consider because we're going to be painting them, and the smooth side is easier to paint. Okay, so we are almost done. What we have left to do is to put the tracks on for those bottom doors. So now that we've got the base on, part of the track, of course, will go on the bottom. And what I'd really like to do is to create some spaces on the back by putting a wall on the front on each side. So I cut my pieces of wood and I'm going to just attach them on either side. And I'm going to cut a thin strip of wood and put it over the seam, basically. But that's not the only support that we're going to have. So I got this set of assorted dowels at Walmart, and that was really inexpensive. I thought it was about $2. And I got 8 dowels of different sizes. So I'm using the second to largest size, and I'm going to put those on the corners. So that will be another support for this piece of wood. I thought that would be really fun. And then I'm also going to put one, I think I used a smaller size, and I'm going to put one in that corner there between the shelves and the wall. And then for one final touch, I don't think I show it here, but what I decided to do was put a larger bead on each of those columns that are at the ends of the walls. And here it is. Here is our finished base for a castle advent calendar. This has so many possibilities.
So what do you think of our advent calendar so far? What we have right now is basically a blank canvas. We have a castle and we could go in a number of different directions with it. We could make it medieval, or we could go in a fantasy direction. We could make it look like one of the castles at the Disney parks. I plan to go in a different direction with it next week. So I do hope that you'll tune in next week to see me finish the advent calendar. I'd love to know your thoughts about the advent calendar in the comments. Maybe what direction you would take it in if you were making it, or if you are making it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That tells me that you like this sort of content and I should bring you more. And if you like this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.